It seems our smartphones can do almost anything these days, from monitoring what we eat to how active we are and how we sleep. Now there's a new app to help students track their mental health and how it affects their academic performance. A team of researchers at Dartmouth College in the United States developed the app, which can automatically tell if you're feeling lonely, depressed or stressed out. Well, let's find out more about this. With me is our Health Check presenter, Dr. Ayan Panja. Dr. Panja, thanks very much for joining us here again on Impact. Just tell us about how this app works.
It sounds pretty amazing, doesn't it? And smartphones absolutely can do so many things these days. It was based on a hunch by Professor Cambell, who's the lead author on this study, that during term time, during a semester, some students seem to respond quite well to stress and rise to the challenge and do very well, and others don't. And of course, mental health can affect academic performance, obviously. So he wanted to find a way, an elegant way of really tracking this. And the question was, could you do it with something that everyone seems to have? And a smartphone is a universal tool. So they looked at three things. They looked at physical activity, sociability and sleep. Now, how is a phone going to do that? You're probably wondering. Well, a phone has an accelerometer in it, so it can track your movements and how fast you're moving and where you're going. It also has a microphone, which can tell you how many conversations someone has in a day, for example. And what they found most amazingly with this is that the results from this study tied up almost exactly with questionnaires that the students did during the study, questionnaires that I would use in my clinical practice as a doctor. So there's one, for example, called a PHQ-9 questionnaire that screens for depression. So when they took the questionnaire results and tallied it up with what the phone showed, there was a match, and that is pretty stunning.
It sounds incredible, but you know, what does this mean for privacy if they can detect the kind of phone calls you're having? I mean, I know there are apps to detect how you sleep, but it just feels like they're getting right into your phone.
Well, this is a big issue, obviously. I mean, this was a very controlled study, and everyone gave their consent. But if you think about privacy, search engines probably have enough data on all of us to make some of these assertions and assumptions. I think the one thing to point out with this study, a really great example, was that two of the students during the study looked as though they'd fallen off a cliff and were really struggling, and they were given a bit more leeway with their assignments, and so actually ended up getting better grades. So there are really positive potential applications for this, and hopefully it can be applied to different groups, you know, looking at working practices in the BBC perhaps, or junior doctors or young mums, you know, lots of applications that are potentials for the future.
Well, I suppose so many different apps have access into our phones, so I suppose we can't be too paranoid about these things
Absolutely
anymore.
right.
Dr. Panja, thanks very much for joining us here on Impact. It's the biggest film in the history of Korean cinema.